So for today's Expo episode, I have a very special guest with me, Sandy. She is an entrepreneur, very involved in the travel community. Not only is she a part owner in True Love Travel, but she has her very own food and travel centric company called Island Food Tours. So hi, Sandy.
Hi, thanks for having me, Nakia.
No, thank you. And I could tell them all about your world travels and the exciting things that you do, but nobody can tell your story like yourself. So, Sandy, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, how you developed this love for travel, and your travel experiences so far?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name
Mhm.
is Sandy, and I am a navigator or sailor by profession. So, I work in the maritime industry outside of travel and tourism. That's my quote unquote real job. And I have that for about oof, long, maybe about
Oh,
15 years, I think. Um, I'm also very active, like I said, in travel. That's one of my passions. That's one of my love.
mhm.
Um, it used to be a hobby. Now it's transitioned into a business as well. And it's one of the things that I'm very, very passionate about. Um, I also, I'm a foodie. So I'm all
Yes.
about trying different cuisines. I always say that I'll try anything at least once. I'll give it a try.
Yes.
So that's kind of how my food tour company evolved, was just out of my love of travel. And I started traveling. Well, as Bahamians, we from we're born, we have a passport,
Yes.
right? So we're not like, some cultures that they don't have passports. From we're born, we have a passport. So my very first international trip obviously was the States, probably Miami or Fort Lauderdale.
Mhm.
But outside of that, the first place that I went internationally was Mexico. Um, and I don't even know if that counts because I was on a cruise. That counts?
That's the gateway because that's how I started as well. Because I don't know if you know, for a while I was terrified of flying. So, you started out on those cruise, and that's kind of like a little gateway into travel.
Yes, yes. Because I always like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't even know if I should say that because I don't know if that counts. But that was the first time that I'd ever been
Hmm.
outside the quote unquote United States.
Hmm.
Um, but outside of that, I really got into traveling because of my job, working in the maritime industry and being a sailor. I've worked on commercial ships.
Hmm.
So I normally work on container ships, oil tankers,
Oh,
any
wow.
type of well as the navigator. And so what that means is that I got to travel on these ships to all these different countries. So one day we may be in Qatar loading
Oh,
gas,
wow.
or we're in China discharging that gas, and then we go back to the Middle East, we go back to Qatar, we load gas again, then we go to Japan or we go
Wow.
to South Korea, we go to London and we discharge this gas. So me working on those ships, it really opened me up to like this whole world because I'm like a little girl from the Bahamas, and now I'm on these ships and I'm sailing all over the world. And you get off in these different countries, and you're like, okay, I have some time off. Let me go explore.
Hmm.
But when you're in countries, you only have a short time when you're on the ship. Say
Hmm.
to go explore, maybe two.
Hmm.
And so I would get off, say, for example, in China, and I would go and explore, and I would come back. And on my vacation, I would say, you know what? When we were in China for that one day or those 2 days, I saw this, saw that, and I want to go back. And so what started happening is on my break or on my vacation from the ship, I started going back to these places.
Hmm.
I'd already seen them, right? And so I'd
Hmm.
already been I'm like, I want to see more. I want to eat the food. I want to dance. I want to shop. I want to do excursions. And so that's how the love affair with travel began. And yeah, that's been probably about 10, 15 years ago. And it's just growing and growing ever since. So my bucket list is always, always, always getting longer.
I'm so intrigued because I know I spoke to you really briefly about what we want to chat about today, but careers in maritime is something that, persons might not have thought about. Just out of curiosity, how did you end up in that career path? Was it something that you always wanted to do? Did you research it? Did you get into it because it offered travel opportunities, or it's just something a happy coincidence?
It was absolutely a coincidence. I was
Mhm.
actually in COB,
Mhm.
well, with UB now,
Mm.
University of the Alumni, and I was in my senior year finishing up a business degree.
Mhm.
And while I was finishing my degree, I just happened to meet. I was working a summer job at the Supreme Court Registry.
Wow.
I just happened to meet the magistrate in passing one day. And he just said to me, he said, young lady, well, what is it that you're doing with your life? And I said, well, I'm going to COB. I'm finishing
Mhm.
my business. I was telling him what I was doing.
Yeah.
So, hey, let me show you something. And so he went back into his chambers and he brought out this brochure
Mhm.
from this university. It was SUNY Maritime College in New York. And I saw this beautiful campus with this big ship in the background, and the kids jogging, and it just looked the kids jogging on campus, and it just looked like, oh my god, this looks so awesome.
Mhm.
Right then, I
Wow.
so went and I told my parents, I'm like, yeah, I know, I just finished COB, I just finished this business degree, but I want to completely switch gears and I want
Mhm.
to go into that. And
Wow.
so I was literally just introduced to maritime in a passing conversation.
Mhm.
And it was nothing I had ever known about or seen about before because we're not exposed to the maritime industry.
No,
You
not at
know,
all.
yeah, you can see a doctor. I like to say you can see a doctor doctoring, or you can
Yeah.
see an accountant accounting, or a lawyer lawyering. I don't know.
Mhm.
But you don't see the people that drive these ships that move
Mhm.
our goods and our products from
Mhm.
China to the US or from
Yeah.
Middle East to China. You don't see these vessels that are moving these goods across the ocean.
Mhm.
And so we have that exposure. And so for me, it was just someone exposing me to the industry
Mhm.
and it piqued interest. And I just went straight into it.
Yeah, that is honestly interesting. I have one cousin, he works in the shipping industry, and we have no idea what he does. He explains it sometime, and it's just like I find it very fascinating. But if I had to break down his career in one paragraph, I'd be like, he works in the maritime field and he works in shipping.
Funny that you say that because I'll have people say to me, Sandy, what is it that you do? Like
Mhm.
nobody knows what you do. What do you do? Like what is And so I break it down. I'm like, my real job, I drive ships. That's all
Mhm.
I tell people. Drive ships. Like that's the simplest way for people to understand it.
And
And
that's
then, mhm,
honestly, and that's just honestly, and that's how the travel, hospitality, and I think that the navigation field would fall into that a little bit. There's so many career paths that persons, if you're not aware, you're not aware, and it might be something that might potentially be so passionate and interested about.
exactly, exactly. And I always encourage young people to get into the industry,
Mhm.
especially when they're young, because when I got into it, I was already considered old. I think because I finished COB, I probably was about 21.
Mhm.
And it when I was about I went back to school for it when I was about 23.
Mhm.
So I probably when I was almost 27.
Mhm.
And so I getting into the field at about 26, 27, I think. And then when I got there, I was working alongside men that had been working in this field from they were 16.
Oh wow.
I was way behind the curve.
Mhm.
So I always tell people, if your kids are interested, let them get into it while they're young. And there's
Mhm.
a program in NASA called the Bahamas Maritime Korean Marine Corps. I
Oh
think
wow.
that's the Bahamas Marine Corps.
Mhm.
And they take that are in 10, 11, and 12
Mhm.
and them and train them in the basics of maritime and navigation and marine engineering to start to prepare them for college life in the maritime field. So I thought that was an excellent
Mhm.
program that's going on. And so for high school students that are interested, I always direct them to enroll in that program.
Mhm. And I could talk to you about this topic for a while because I am genuinely intrigued. But I want to talk about island food tours a little bit. There's been some challenges in the past couple of months with the restrictions on travel. As a small travel-centric business owner, how have you been coping and how have things been in the last few months?
Okay, so Island Food Tours actually got started, maybe in 2015, I
Mm.
think, years ago. And it actually got started in Freeport.
Oh,
Mhm.
I have a soft spot for Freeport.
I love Freeport. I absolutely love Freeport. That's one of my favorite places to be. And yeah, so it actually started in Freeport. What had happened is on one of my trips to China,
Mhm.
I'd been on a food tour.
Mhm.
And on this tour, they had literally shuttled us to six different restaurants. And
Mhm.
at each of those six different restaurants, we tried something new,
Mhm.
some bread,
Yeah.
whatever stuff. And this is interesting. So it was like you got a little glimpse into their culture just from like all the different things we were eating. And I was like, this is so cool. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to do something like this in the Bahamas.
Mhm.
So fast forward now, I started a new working opportunity in Freeport, and
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm gonna be here for a little while. So I told one of my friends about it, and he was like, "Oh, Sandy, I love it. Let's do it." So we launched in Freeport. I think it was the end of 2015,
Mhm.
and we launched it as the Flavors of Freeport Food Tour.
Mm.
No, I launched it in 2016
Mhm.
as the Flavors of Freeport Food Tour.
Mhm.
And so we started doing the tour around the island. But what happened is Hurricane Matthew hit
Mm.
at October 2016. Hurricane Matthew hit. All of the hotels shut down.
Mhm.
And that was where we were getting the majority of our clients were coming from the major hotels in Grand Bahama.
Mhm.
So when the hotels shut down, our business almost immediately just came to a standstill.
Mhm.
So we were kind of like in limbo. Like, what do we do? Do we wait until the hotels reopen and revamp? Or do we move the entire business model now and try to make it work in Nassau?
Yeah.
So we mulled it over. We waited first to see how things would play out in Freeport. And I think around mid 2017, about 6 to 7 months later, we were like, okay, yeah, we need to make a decision. And so
Yeah.
we moved Nassau. We had to quickly meet with the vendors, find staff, and find, okay, how are we going to make this work logistically?
Yeah.
And so we used the last 6 months of 2017 to do that. And we relaunched in Nassau as the Flavors of Nassau Food Tour in January 2018. And so we've been operating in Nassau since then, from 2018 to now. And basically, Island Food Tours, the whole concept of the company was to take visitors and locals alike on a culinary road trip and to introduce them to different foods, different restaurants, different styles of meal preparation, cooking classes,
Mhm.
different culinary events. So basically, we wanted to fuse together one experience, but we wanted to do it in a way that had never been done before. We wanted to do it in a road trip style.
Mhm.
And one of the things that was so exciting is that it was so well received.
Yes,
Uh,
and she is underplaying it. I've been on the tour, and it is fun. It is as I honestly had a genuinely amazing time. So she is underselling it. She did an amazing tour.
like did you come with us on the Rum Runners tour?
Yes, I did. I had so much fun.
This Nakia came.
Yes.
But on Nakia, it's funny when we started, we didn't focus on the local market at
Mhm.
all. We were just focused on cruise ship
Okay.
passengers because once we came to Nassau, we realized the cruise ship passengers were
Mhm.
taking advantage for more than
Mhm.
the hotel guests. And I think it was because for the cruise ship guests, they only have a short window.
Mhm. And I
They,
want to get a little taste.
they wanted to see as much as possible because the flavors of Nassau food tour is 4 hours. So they wanted to see as much as possible in a short amount of time. They also wanted to taste the island as well. Because on the tour, we take you on a 4-hour tour. And for that specific tour, we're also, taking you to different landmarks. So they're seeing the different forts, they're seeing the water tower, they're seeing the 66 steps. So we're stopping to these places en route to the different tasting stops. And so they get a lot in that 4 hours. And so that became very popular with cruise ship guests. And so initially, like I said, we were only focused on tourists. And then what happened is one of the hotels that use us, they said, "Hey, what do y'all have for locals?" They were like, one of the girls was like, "My birthday is coming up, and I see y'all always come here to pick up the gas. Like, what do y'all have for locals?" And I thought about it, and I was like, "We don't have anything for locals." But I didn't tell her that.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I immediately, it clicked to me. I said, we need a local tour. And so that's when we started with the brunch and Sundays tour. You were there for the launch of that.
Yes, I had a fantastic time, and I ate too much, but I had a really good time.
We started with the brunch and Sundays tour because we knew that the average Bahamian, they didn't want to sample conch fritters and conch style. Yeah, you get that all the time. They wanted, let's switch it up a little bit. So, and that's why for our local tours, we wanted to move away from that model and do something that we thought would appeal, to our local audience. And so the brunch and Sundays tour was a hit. Um, and then after that, we launched the Rum Runners Pub Crawl, and that was a hit as well. So it was exciting to see the reception, people saying, "Hey, my birthday is coming up. I want to book this for me and my friends." Some people booked it for anniversary. Another young lady booked it because she wanted to announce to her friends that she was getting married and ask them to party. So, it was just amazing to see the response. And I think that people are always looking for something new and fun to do. What else is there? What else is fun? What else haven't I tried? And I think that's why it's caught on so well with the local market.
And during the course of the interviews, a lot of persons noted that online they've seen a greatest interest in persons looking to travel closer to home, domestic travel. Have you also seen persons reaching out to island food tours looking for when you're going to start back up because they want to experience things right at home?
Yeah, definitely. We've had persons, reach out to us and say, "Are you guys operating? My birthday is coming up. I'm looking for something to do." But the challenge has been after the first lockdown, well, even prior to the first lockdown, when the cruise ship stopped coming back in March, that essentially brought our business almost to a standstill. And then shortly after that, we experienced the lockdown. So, it was a rough patch during the first lockdown, but we said, you know what, let's try to ride it out um, and see, how we can rebound. And so when we reopened, I think in July, we reopened and we started doing tours again for locals. But the problem was that we had to cut the tour size in half. And so if we were used to carrying a group of 15, now we had to carry a group of 6 or 7. That didn't really work for our business model, because we have things in place with our vendors. Um, we have staff, we have to pay, we have a bottom, so that us having to literally cut the number in half to allow for social distancing on the bus, it kind of that wasn't working for us. So when we went on the second lockdown, we decided, what, we're just gonna close indefinitely until we can see our way clear, and until we can re-strategize and see how we can make these new protocols work for us. So we have been letting our guests know that right now we're not sure when we'll be operating again. But we will keep them up to date, especially as things are constantly changing.
And also, I know that you can't speak in absolutes, and there are a lot of unknowns. But have you seen a cohesive unity among the local travel community? Have they been supportive of each other, and just trying to help in any way that they can to support the other businesses locally?
Well, I would say yes. I would say um, as much as they can.
Hmm.
Because, for example, with Island Food Tours, we had we had a virtual event that
Mm.
we that was supported by a lot of our vendors and partners, and then we also did a digital product or a virtual product, which was a virtual food tour. And the first thing we did, the virtual event was we did a virtual cook off where we were
Ooh.
crowned on either king or queen of the quarantine kitchen.
Mhm.
This was during the first lockdown,
Yeah, I think
and
I
that
remember that. We were all like very captive on Instagram and we were looking for content. So that was perfect.
exactly. That was the beginning of the first lockdown, and that was so much fun because we did foodie versus chef. So it was a local foodie versus a local chef, and they had to battle it out making one dish,
Mhm.
and they could only use 10 ingredients, and they had 30 minutes.
Mhm.
And ran that for 4 weeks, and so we got a lot of support um, from our partners, from our vendors, and so I think as much as they could have, they supported the event. And then when we did the virtual food tour, we also got a lot of support from that. We got persons saying, "Okay, I know I have some guests that have stayed at my place before, and they still want to support, locals during this time." So I had persons sending names and saying, okay, these persons would like to do the food tour, and then them sharing it. So I think as much as possible, a lot of the stakeholders came together. Ministry of Tourism, we had, them also trying to support the virtual food tour. So we had, I would say, as much as possible, people have tried during this time, but I still think people are limited in what they can do,
Mhm.
given the fact that we're still basically shut down,
Mhm.
and we still basically have no gas. So
Mhm.
I think as much as possible, everyone has been supportive, and we've tried to do the same as well for like other stakeholders in the industry, whether it's sharing your content or
Mhm.
whether it's sending persons who may be potential clients for us who we can't service, probably referring them to someone else who we think may be able to suit their needs better. So yeah, that's what I would say in that regard.
Oh, awesome. I mean, it's really good to see that, your partners in the community are, still being positive and helping in any way they can. Um, you've spoken about how you've been adapting and evolving as best you can and looking forward to the future. But I just wanted to know, are you optimistic about the future of not only the Bahamian tourism and travel community, but travel as a whole around the world?
Yeah, I am absolutely optimistic. The travel industry is one of the largest industries, and we have been through catastrophic events before that have almost crippled the tourism industry, and we've rebounded. Um, with this pandemic and the fallout and the effects of it, I do think that it will take longer, however, for us to totally rebound and to come back from it. But I am optimistic that it'll happen. And even now, with the climate now, I'll give you an example. We had um, with True Love Travel, with my team at True Love Travel, we had 5 trips scheduled for 2020.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had to cancel them because of the pandemic and everything going on. But we've seen that persons are still interested. Not this year, obviously, but for next year, persons are still interested in doing trips and getting out there. They just want to know that it can be done safely,
Yeah.
uh, and they just want to know that all the measures that are in place to protect them are in place.
Mhm.
But I definitely I'm definitely optimistic, and I definitely think that things will come back in time. I've already started traveling domestically in the United States.
Mhm.
And I've been telling people, because a lot of people have been asking, how has my experience been? Because people are still scared.
Mhm.
People are scared to venture out, and rightly so. So I've just been using my platform to let people know, you can travel safely um, during this time. You just have to make sure that you're practical and that you protect yourself. And I think if everybody is doing that, we'll see where the travel industry will rebound a lot quicker.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Sandy. You have not only given us a wealth of knowledge in terms of what it's been like being a small business owner, but highlighting a little bit about future career paths that other travel-minded young people might want to take. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us on today's episode at the Expo.
You're welcome. This was such an excellent idea. I'm so happy that you're doing this.
And thank you so much. And before we leave, would you like to say any parting words of travel optimism?
My thing is, I just want to encourage people to not think that this is the end for travel, to just think that, you know what, I can still get out there, and I can still have these experiences once I do it in a safe way. Because we know that we're going to be experiencing the effects of the pandemic, and that the virus is going to be with us for a long time. There's nothing we can do about that.
Mhm.
But I think that we have to understand that once we can protect ourselves,
Mhm.
that we can still have these opportunities. Like I had planned I had a group trip planned with some friends for the end of this year, and
Mhm.
of course everybody pulled out because of what's going on. Um, but I was just telling them, I was like, guys, this isn't going anywhere. So we have to learn how to live with it and how to properly protect ourselves. And so that's really all I really want to impress upon people, is that once we learn, what we have to do to make sure that we're safe, we can still all travel safely. But I also, I don't, if persons aren't into it, I'm not pressuring anybody.
Yeah.
I'm just hey, if you want to jump back out there, even if you take baby steps, a short trip or something. But I know me, for one, I was so tired of being in the house. I was just so tired of being in the house during the lockdowns. I was like, you know what? I was nervous about it the first time when I left home. But I think in the last 2 months, I've probably done like 8 flights.
Wow.
And yeah, and I've seen the steps that the airlines are taking and that the airports are taking to make sure people are safe and can travel in a healthy way. So that's made me feel a little bit more, more comfortable as
Mhm.
well. So I tell people, I said, you know what, if you have the opportunity, do it. Just be safe about it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sandy. And I hope that all of you will not only follow Sandy on the Island Food Tours page, but also check out all of the amazing adventures that they've been doing on True Love Travel.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sandy.
You.